Well, when you have, in the for-profit business, I have 200 police officers that work for us. So that's 200 families that rely on the off-duty work that we provide to make ends meet, to supplement their incomes, to pay for unexpected expenses. So that's what gets me out of bed every morning. I know there's 200 officers that are going to need off-duty work in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And so that keeps me motivated to keep going out there and finding those new contracts, finding those new security sites, all that stuff to keep these officers. I want to make sure that they have exactly as much or as little off-duty work as they need or want.
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen, to everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell, from the doctor saving lives at your local hospital, to the war veteran down the street who risked his life for our freedom, to the police officers and the firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling. But there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored: the entrepreneur, the creator, the producer. The ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what, I can fix that. I can help people. I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world. Others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks on the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and I am live on the line today with Stacey Magovern. Stacey, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So glad to have you here. And we were chatting before we got on here. You're from Texas, is that right?
Yes, originally from Abilene, Texas, but have spent the last 14 or so years in right outside of Fort Worth, Texas, in a little town called Burleson.
Burleson. That's funny. That is where we bought our first RV when we started our travels. We drove all the way across the country, like 2,200 miles, and checked out 3 RVs, and we stopped in Burleson, Texas, and bought our first RV and drove it home to California. So
Oh, wow.
I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually Kelly Clarkson's hometown. So yeah, but it's growing like crazy.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near as small as it
I
used to be.
I managed we bought our RV, and then like 10 minutes after we signed the paperwork, I high centered the RV over, you know how they have all the dips on the roads for water in Texas.
Yeah.
I high centered the RV in the driveway of the thing, and they had to use a fork to lift us out. So
Oh
I've
no.
got good memories of Burleson, Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Wow.
anyways, for our audience who is just following along with my wife and I's travels, as we do this podcast, we're still in Florida. We're in Kissimmee right now. There's a hurricane going around us. Hopefully, we'll miss us. And I know you guys have gotten hit by a few this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Of course, the worst was
I guess
Harvey.
you're far enough north to not really
Right.
be
Mostly
affected too
Houston and,
much
and
by it.
down in that area is who gets the hurricanes. But yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So what I want to do real quick is just do a brief introduction for our audience who may not know who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into your story a little bit. So
Sure.
Stacy is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and founder of Point Blank Safety Services, which is a security company resourcing off-duty police officers, and you are the co-founder of Blue Family Fund, a nonprofit benefiting families of first responders. So with that sort of brief introduction, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, who you serve, and what you do for them?
Well, we're very passionate. My husband's a police officer, so we're very passionate about first responders. And years ago, as a police wife, I really saw a gap in the marketplace for off-duty work for police officers. And so I solved the problem. I created a marketplace so they can have as much or as little off-duty work as they want. So every day we wake up, we're helping police officers, manage their bills and be able to make ends meet. And then with the success that we've had with Point Blank, we decided to form Blue Family Fund, which is a self-funded nonprofit where every single penny goes to help a family of a fallen or injured first responder, either through a scholarship or through financial aid.
That's really cool. And just as a first note here, thank you and your family for your service. We always make it a point whenever we are driving around, even when we get pulled over, which happens more often than not when you're driving full time like we do. We
Right.
always make it a point to thank the officers because I know it's tough work that you do, and we appreciate it. And I can't even imagine being the wife of a police officer and having to deal with that sort of the stress that you guys have to go through. So we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that's always surprised me too, and I don't know why it shouldn't surprise me, but it does, is everywhere we go, we meet police officers all the time. They're always, if you hit up the local restaurants and whatnot, you always find the group of police officers who are having lunch or whatever. And they're always super friendly, and our kids always love to go up and say hi and thank them and whatnot. And they always have like stickers or toys or other things that they're handing out to kids. They're super friendly. We even had one time where we had our coach overheated while there was a traffic incident. We were stuck in traffic and we pulled off to the side to let our coach cool down since it couldn't just handle sitting there. And one of the lady police officers came over to check on us to see if we were part of the accident or something. And we're like, no, 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 our coach just overheated. We're just waiting out the traffic so we don't have to sit here with the engine on. And she's like, okay, that's fine. And she came back up. She had been going to some school event, and she had all of these police dolls, like
Oh,
little teddy
wow.
bears that had police uniforms on, and she gave all my kids teddy bears and stickers and other things. So it was super cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, we have a lot of respect for your work and what the police officers do. So, anyways, just hearing that you guys are doing things to help that community is really cool. And I'm curious on the Blue Family Fund, the second side of that, the nonprofit. What made you want to get into starting that second business?
Honestly, in 2017, my husband and I looked at each other and we said, we've been so blessed. We've had so much success with our for-profit business, Point Blank Safety, that we wanted to pay it forward or give back or however you want to say it. And we started researching different charities. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good ones out there, but then there's a lot that very little of your donation actually goes to the cause. It all goes to huge overheads or huge salaries for CEOs. And I work hard for my money. You work hard for your money. I just didn't want to support that. So we said, you know what? We founded a company. Let's just go for it and take the leap of faith and do the nonprofit thing and pay all the expenses ourselves. And so truly every dollar you donate can go to help a family. And so we started that in 2017, and in just a couple of years we've been in existence, we've been able to help 9 families, and we've given out 3 scholarships. So, and we're continuing to build awareness. That's actually why I do podcasts, is to build awareness for Blue Family Fund, and that there is a charity out there that doesn't take your money, for overhead or expenses. We really turn it right back around and give it to families in need, whether it be a scholarship or financial aid. We have a family right now that we're trying to raise money. He's an ex-police officer, but he had a stroke, lives in a mobile home, and so he needs some renovations on his home to be able to get the wheelchair around in the small mobile home. So we're trying to help him right now. And then prior to that, we raised some money for an officer that died from COVID in the line of duty. So, we're constantly working to help these families that really need it.
That's really cool. So one of the things that I think would be really interesting for our audience to hear about, because we've not had any guests on that have had experience with both a for-profit and a nonprofit business. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like running those two different types of businesses, right? Like how you have to think about them or run them when one is profit and one's not profit.
It's strange that it's actually pretty similar, except that my husband and I take on all the expenses for the nonprofit, but you're still constantly promoting, you're still constantly trying to build awareness, you're still, you still have to do the quote unquote cold calls, if you will. We have a big fundraiser coming up in
Yeah.
February, so I'm constantly out there asking for donations for auction items and sponsors and all that stuff. So it's still sales, if you will. It's just you're asking people for money to turn around and help someone. So but it's all the same activities. It's still, you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to spread the word. You've got to continually, the more people you talk to, the more chances you have of whether it be getting a new contract on the for-profit side or getting a big donation on the nonprofit side. So I'm constantly wearing multiple hats. Luckily, both of our businesses support first responders, so they kind of go hand in hand. But every day I get up, whether I'm working on the Blue Family Fund or I'm working on Point Blank, I know I'm helping the families of those that put their lives on the line every day to keep us safe.
Yeah, yeah. So the skills from the for-profit business were really transferable over to the nonprofit business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I've always thought, and I'm not at this point yet with my business, but is to get it. Being an entrepreneur has the best opportunity for you to be able to make a big impact,
Hmm.
where you can start up nonprofits, or you can help a lot of people in a lot of ways, because you're running a business that has profit. Like in your case, you guys are spinning off enough profit from your for-profit business to support the nonprofit to pay all the
Right.
expenses,
Right.
which is like that's a really big give that not a lot of people who are outside of the entrepreneur world can do. So
Right.
that's really cool.
Well, and in my
Yeah.
opinion, every big company that is successful should do it. I mean, you should pay it forward. Life is all about you get what you give, and if you have if you're able, I feel like instead of getting the bigger house and the nicer car and all that material stuff, why not help some people? It really there's no bigger reward than seeing that you helped change a life, or maybe not change a life, but maybe just get someone over one of their hardest times in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about your superpowers then, right? So we say on the show every iconic hero has a superpower, whether that's a fancy flying suit made by a genius intellect or the ability to call down thunder from the sky. In the real world, heroes have what I call a zone of genius, which is either a skill or set of skills that you were born with or developed over time, that really energize all of your other skills, right? The things it's what ties everything together, the common thread, so to speak. And the superpower is what sets you apart and allows you to help your clients or your people slay their villains in their life and come out on top in their own journeys. So with that sort of framing, what do you think your superpower is?
Oh, I figured it out a long time ago, actually. I was in outside sales for years before I started my own business. And I realized really quickly, well, first of all, you call it superpower. I call it a gift. I say every person in this world is born with a gift. And when you actually figure out what your gift is, your life changes. Everything sort of opens up for you because you kind of really figure out what your path is and where you're supposed to be. And I figured out years ago that I have the ability to build trust very quickly, which because of that, I was able, like I said, to build a huge outside sales career and be very successful, able to start both of these businesses and grow them to what they are today. So, people um, get inspired by me. I believe they get motivated by me. I think very big. So sometimes that superpower can also be a little bit of a flaw because I have to kind of rein myself in, because I'm already in my mind, I'm already retired on a yacht and we haven't even, filed the paperwork yet. So sometimes I have to take a step back and go, okay, we can do this, but it's going to take some baby steps. But yeah, definitely, and it doesn't matter what your gift is. I mean, maybe you bake the best apple pie in the country, whatever it is. Um, when you figure that out, life completely changes, and the rewards are limitless.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine that she sat down with a whole group of us actually and was talking. She worked with Fortune 500 company CEOs for a number of years, and one of the things that came up over and over and over again with people who were wildly successful with their businesses, was that they only ever focused on their one thing, right? Like
Right.
whatever that thing was, whatever their superpower was. It's like they built their life around it, right? And they ignored everything else,
Exactly.
because that's how that's when you focus on your gift, right, or your superpower, you can really push that to this sky's the limit kind of thing.
Right.
uh, and that's where learning how to build a team and filling in places where you may have weaknesses and other things with other people, so you can just focus on here's the one thing that I'm really really good at, and
Yeah, I
you can
say that
blow
all
your
the
business
time.
up that way.
Yeah, when I speak and at events and so forth, I'm always talking about that. Don't try to do it all. Do the thing that you're good at, and that's what makes your business scalable. If you're trying to be all hats, like you don't want me in there doing Excel spreadsheets and numbers, and that's not my thing. My thing is being the face of the company and talking to people and building trust and building a reputation. There's other people that are better at the book work and so forth. So yeah, I preach that to people. If you're not doing what builds your business and generates revenue, if you're spending your time on the busy work or the social media or I don't know, whatever time consuming things there are, you're not you're creating a job for yourself, not a scalable business.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that you're doing is you're making it hard to eventually sell your business, right? Because
Mhm.
all the systems are built into your work, and you're limiting like the amount of good you can do
Right.
for other
Absolutely.
people. So
Yeah, for sure.
cool. So the flip side then of your superpower is your fatal flaw, right? So just like every Superman has their kryptonite, or Wonder Woman has her bracelets of victory that she can't remove without going mad, you probably have a flaw that's held you back in your business, something that you've struggled with. For me, it was things like perfectionism that kept me from shipping product or services, or lack of self-care, which led to me letting my clients walk all over me because I didn't have good boundaries set up, things like that. But I think more important than the flaw is how have you worked to rectify it and overcome it so you can continue to grow. And hopefully, sharing your experience will let our audience learn a little bit from you.
Yeah, I have a real problem with control. I want to manage every single process and every single step, and that's just not possible in a scalable business. So I have a problem trusting that other people will do it the way I want it done, or as good as I think I could do it. So when you realize that you have that issue, it comes back on you actually, because if they aren't doing it up to your standards, then maybe you didn't explain it properly. Maybe, I've had to call myself out several times and go, you know what? That wasn't their fault. It was my fault because I wasn't clear in my direction. So I had to take a step back and realize, I can trust other people, but I've got to be clear in my direction and clear in my specifically what I want as the outcome to be from them. And the more you communicate and the clearer you are, the easier it is to outsource many, many different things. I've learned over the years, I can't do it all, even though sometimes I want to or try to. I've learned to step back, and it's taken time, and it's hard, especially when it's your baby, your business. You started it from nothing. It's really hard to let loose of that control of all of it. But like I said, you'll never have a scalable business if you don't learn how to do that. And it's okay for people to make a mistake. It's okay for something not to work out. Then we all learn together, we grow together, and we move forward and hopefully make a better, stronger company. But it's definitely a learning experience, and it takes time. And still today, I
Yeah,
catch
yeah,
myself. Yeah, still today, I catch myself going, don't do it for, or don't do it for them. Let them do it, and then, go back with the coaching and the training. So, but it's
yeah.
definitely been a struggle.
I regularly I tell my staff that mistakes are stepping stones to greatness.
Yep, for
Um,
sure.
and as long as we communicate about them, right? And it's just when we try to hide them or put them under somewhere that they turn into problems. But the other thing that you mentioned is like learning how to properly train your staff and put your systems together. If they're not doing it correctly, most of the time it's not them,
Right.
right? It's on your systems or on your training. And I've
Absolutely.
learned that a lot. And what I found is like the better I get at putting together solid systems or putting together solid training for them on what I want done or clear expectations of the outcomes, the better the work output gets, right? And
Absolutely.
then I find out that not only can they do it just as well as I can, a lot of times they can do it better and faster than I can.
Right. Or they
Uh,
have they have some amazing ideas too. So it always helps just to listen, sit back and just listen to, what the people that are doing it every day have to say about it. Because I've learned a lot that maybe my way wasn't the best way over the years.
yeah, yeah. That's one of the things we have weekly meetings with our staff, just once a week. And one of the sections we have at the end of the meeting is, do you guys have any ideas for how we could improve our systems, right? Because like I just built them, but you guys actually use them every day.
Right.
So like where are the struggle points? Where are the things that we can make it better or change it or improve it or something like that? And um, that's where we start to get a lot of the feedback that really, it uses the collective genius of all the people that we bring in.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. Cool. So I want to talk a little bit about your common enemy then, right? So this is more in line with the people that you actually work to help, right? So every superhero has an arch nemesis. which is a thing they constantly have to fight against in their world. In the world of business, it takes many forms, but generally speaking, we're talking about your clients, and it's a mindset or it's a flaw that you're constantly having to fight to overcome, right? Something that, if you had your magic wand and you could bop them on the head as soon as they became a client, you could help them get better, cheaper, or faster, faster results. And for you, I know you sort of have like two sides to your business where you have the police officers that you're helping, and then you have the people that you're hiring them out to. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the arch nemesis on both sides of that.
Yeah. For me, police officers have a totally different mindset, totally different outlook. They're very black and white. They're very, black and white as in literal, as far as rules and expectations. And so luckily I have my husband who is a police officer. So he's able to
He
really,
communicates that way.
get on the same page with these officers. And, I'm more the salesy big picture, it's all grand and it's all going to be wonderful kind of outlook. So luckily I do have him to help me speak to the officers and set out expectations and those things. And then as far as clients, we deal with really, really huge companies. So, I don't know that there's anything I guess obviously clients that don't pay or clients that slow pay would be my nemesis for sure. They're used to, really longer terms and things when you get into these really big clients. So, I have to kind of remind them that, I got to pay all these officers and our margins are pretty small. So we need to really get a check quickly. So, if I could bump them on
Do you guys do things like net 30 and net 90 terms and stuff like that, or do you guys
we do net
like
30? But the thing is, some of these companies are so huge that we work for because they're doing highway construction. They're used to net 90 or so, somewhere along those lines, net 120 even. And we just can't operate that way.
That's that would be really rough on cash flow if you had to do net
Yeah.
120.
Yep.
You have to float the business for 4 months.
Yeah, it is. So you have to really go in, get in your negotiating hat and get in there and make them realize, I'm not building highways. I'm not the same size as them. We do a great business, but definitely not on their level. So I have to get paid a lot faster.
Yeah, I remember I worked for a solar company for a number of years, and because they were doing big construction for like working for energy companies and building like the giant solar farms and whatnot, or municipalities and whatnot, and helping them build whatever they were building for powering the cities. And they used to always want to work on net 90 and net 120 terms, and like they really had to plan the finances because they're like, we have to hire the people, and we have to buy all the materials, and we have to rent the equipment and build all of this stuff, and then 4 months later we get paid.
Right.
And it's profitable, but you have to float that money, right? Which is it's difficult to plan and do that, especially when they're talking like they were doing like $8 million deals and stuff like that. So I mean, it's rough.
Right. Especially when your margins are small. If you're running on, 18%, 22% profit margin, that's a lot of money that you're floating for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, how do you handle some of those negotiations and really make sure that you are getting those net 30 terms that you can work with, and sort of making sure that your business is fiscally viable?
Yeah, I've gotten better over the years. Originally when we got our first $1.5 million contract, we were just so happy to get it that you take whatever terms that they put out there because you're just like, oh my gosh, our business is
yay.
Yeah, my business is finally legit. I mean, that's a true story, by the way. I was in the bathroom putting on my makeup, getting ready for work, and FedEx rang the doorbell, and it was a $1.5 million contract for my company to provide police officers on a project in Dallas. And,
Nice.
so originally you just take the terms, but then as you learn in business that, that's not going to work because you're having to either factor your invoices or you're having to take out loans or whatever, which eats into all the profit. Now I'm very, very strategic about contracts and terms and make sure that everybody understands exactly what it has to be, but it's a learning experience. You live and learn, and you figure things out as you go. And, I've made a lot of mistakes over the years, but I've done a lot of things right. And I just think you have to just learn and grow. And if you do make a mistake, accepting a term that doesn't work, well, just learn from it, and next time do it differently. But it's all part of doing business.
Yeah. Have you had to learn how to do the whole negotiating thing where you come in with one spot and know that you're going to have to give ground and things like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's sales, from no matter what you're selling, there's always that negotiation all the way down to the signing of the contract. The great news is with what we do is that TxDOT reimburses these contractors for a lot of the services, including police officers. So, it's pretty much a guarantee that they're going to be paid and then we're going to be paid. So there's not a lot of risk in it.
That's cool. Well, it's an interesting discussion for sure, especially when you're talking about big contracts and net terms and whatnot. It's not a common discussion we get to have on this podcast. So, anyways, it's really fascinating. So, my next question for you then is more about your driving force, right? So, your common enemy is something that you have to fight against. Your driving force is the thing that you fight for. Right. So just like Spider-Man fights to save New York, or Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information, what is it that you guys fight for in your business?
Well, when you have, in the for-profit business, I have 200 police officers that work for us. So that's 200 families that rely on the off-duty work that we provide to make ends meet, to supplement their incomes, to pay for unexpected expenses. So that's what gets me out of bed every morning. I know there's 200 officers that are going to need off-duty work in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And so that keeps me motivated to keep going out there and finding those new contracts, finding those new security sites, all that stuff to keep these officers. I want to make sure that they have exactly as much or as little off-duty work as they need or want. And then on the nonprofit side, we continually have requests coming in. I think I talked a little bit earlier about the most recent request of an officer that needs some revisions on his home because he's had a stroke and is in a wheelchair. So, we want to be able to help every one of the requests that comes in. Obviously, we're probably not ever going to be able to do that. But when a request comes in for help of any kind, I really take it seriously. And I really try to figure out any way I could help the family because they're reaching out because they really need it. So that's a lot to help you get out of bed in the morning. And it's a lot of weight on your shoulders
absolutely.
To know, oh my gosh, I got to raise money for this family. I've got to find off-duty work for this family. So yeah, it's totally, that's the driving force.
I remember one of the lessons that really stuck with me when I was working in the corporate world, as I was mentoring right under the president of the company. Right, I was on the C-level team doing the marketing, and I reported to the president of the company every week, and I got to sit in and work with him a lot. And one of the things he said to me that really stuck was that they had 115 employees, and I think, and he's like every morning when he got up, he's like, the thing that he was most interested in his company with the company is, how do I make sure that we have payroll ready every 2 weeks for all of these employees, like everything else that they do, right? The services they provide, the contracts that they're signing, everything that they're doing, making sure legal is working right, making sure transportation, everything, all of the stuff in the business is coming down to, I have 110 families and their children that if we don't make payroll, they don't eat.
Right. So true. 100% true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
And yeah, it really stuck with me. And I remember at the beginning of the COVID crisis, when everything was sort of up in the air, and I had a couple of clients that were like, "Hey, we're gonna have to pause working." My first thought was like, I have a small staff. We've only got like three people plus myself. I was like, I've got 3 other families that are relying on the work that we do, and I was like, we got to get to work and find new contracts and get stuff going, because it's not an option to just roll over and die, because it's not just me, right? It's me and my family and my employees' families. And I know you guys are probably the same way. And I guess speaking of that, how were you guys affected by the major pandemic and like your work and contracts and that kind of stuff?
Well, TxDOT, highway construction in Texas is always gonna be there. We did slow down for a few months, but we joke that in Texas there's 2 seasons, winter and highway construction. So it's always there.
That's true.
And it is true. So we're a little bit different. Ours is a real niche business, so we weren't we were affected a little, We definitely had a drop in revenue, and we're recovering now from that. But I feel bad for the businesses out there that were just totally devastated and have now gone under. It breaks my heart that you work your whole life to create
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
and then even, I mean, the ones by the pandemic, and then the ones destroyed by looters, and just all of it. It's just so sad to me.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. So just speaking of like, working with TechStat, and working in Dallas and those areas, do you have plans to expand outside of Texas or like beyond the Dallas metro area or anything like that?
We would like to. I mean, right now, Texas is huge, so we
Yeah.
haven't even broken into Houston yet. So we're still working on expanding to all of Texas, which is a huge process. But yeah, we're absolutely interested. Nevada has sort of the same jurisdictions for their officers that Texas does, so we'd love to expand in Nevada and some other states. Obviously, I love to gamble, so that's a perfect fit.
That would
Um,
that would help.
yeah. So dang, I got to go back to Las Vegas. Darn it. But anyway, yeah. So sure. Yeah. We're always open to growing the business and helping as many families as we possibly can.
Yeah, so one of the things that just sort of popped into my head while you're talking about that is Uber's example of how they have the what do they call it, the taxis and whatnot where stuff is. Are you doing the same kind of thing where you've developed an app or developed a system where your officers can be like, hey, here's the hours I have available, and a company can be like, hey, I need officers, and they just sort of connect them together. Is that how you work?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, it's not an app, but yeah. My husband actually is the Excel genius. So he put together the whole scheduling system. So 30 days in advance, you send us your availability schedule, and then we know what we have as far as clients, and then we plug you in to where there's a need for officers, and then that goes out. So the great thing about us is that up to 30 days in advance when you're working, where you're working, when you're going to be paid, which is a lot different from any other off-duty work. My husband did some off-duty work before we started this company, and it was so random. We never knew when he was going to get to work. We never knew when we were going to get paid. And so that's kind of how I came up with the idea for the company. I said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to fill this gap in the marketplace where officers know. My husband would work a 12-hour shift, come home, pop a beer, and then they'd call wanting him for off-duty work. Well, if he'd only known, that he was going to have to work or that he could work, he wouldn't have done that. So we just decided there's got to be a better way. And so we took his scheduling and all those capabilities and my sales capabilities and put them together and made this company work.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm curious about, which I know might be a little bit on the political side, but it sounds like police officers may not be getting paid enough to do their regular work, which is why the off-duty work is attractive. Is that a
Yeah.
problem that is common with the industry?
It's very well, at least in Texas. I don't know about everywhere, but in Texas, there's a lot of rural departments, there's a lot of small town departments, and those guys make, I mean, almost nothing. It's really, really sad. And those guys are police officers because they truly want to serve. That's their calling. Now you get into some of the bigger cities, the Dallas PD and Fort Worth and Houston, those guys make pretty good living. And so that, some of them still work off duty, but the need isn't as great. But in the smaller towns and communities, the need, they can't make it on their salaries.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate thing, especially when our country is having its discussions about defunding the police, which I think is ridiculous personally. But it's that same mentality we have with teachers too. Teachers are educating the next generation, and our police officers are protecting our current one. We
Right.
should we should be able to figure out as a society how to pay them well.
Right. For
Um,
sure. Yeah.
so
It's a different world today for sure. My son had a wreck the other day, on his way to work, and we called the police, and they said, we just don't have the staff unless someone's hurt. We just can't come. And I've never lived in a world like that before, where police didn't come every time they were called. But now they're so short staffed, and
yeah,
some of them defunded, so they really can't.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And I've heard there's places because we travel all the time, so we hear from a lot of the other traveling families, we're in groups and stuff that there's places in the country now where they have billboards up before the cities that say, hey, enter at your own risk. We've defunded our police. And you're like,
Wow.
that's insanity that's happening in America.
Hmm. Absolutely crazy.
So yeah, sounds like Mad Max to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
I never thought I'd
but
see the day, but
but here we are. So I want to talk a little bit about some practical things, right? I call this your hero's tool belt. And just like every superhero has awesome gadgets like batarangs or web slingers or laser eyes, I want to talk about the top one or two tools that you couldn't live without in your business. Could be anything from your notepad to your calendar to tools you use for marketing or something you use for your actual service delivery. Anything you think is essential to getting the job done on a daily basis.
yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is I have a great marketing team. I use Love Media Group. They're based in Fort Worth, and they do all my websites. So bluefamilyfund.org, pointblanksafety.com, StaceyMagovern.com. They do everything for me. They also do a lot of my social media and all my video creations and content. We have a new video out for our casino night, which will be our big fundraiser for next year. Without those guys, I don't know where I'd be as far as marketing. They're really awesome. And then probably the other one that comes to mind is we use FreshBooks. I know most people love QuickBooks and QuickBooks, but we use FreshBooks. It's a company out of Canada, and it enables us to really track hours for every single officer, and bill our clients via email. And you can also log all expenses from your phone. And I just love it. It also integrates with our direct deposit. And I can at any moment, at any given time, just pull it up on my phone and know exactly how much I'm owed and who's paid and who hasn't and all that kind of stuff. So probably those are the two main things that I don't know what I'd do without them.
Yeah. It's funny too, like when you get to a certain size, how important the accounting stuff becomes, right? Where you're like, we got to make sure all the invoices and numbers and hours and everything are getting paid. I said I'm just at the point where we're using a software called Hubstaff, which tracks all of our employees' hours, and which is super cool. But like, there's so much to it that I'm just barely scratching the surface
Right.
on like learning how to use it. I haven't even figured out how to get it to send me reports yet on things. I can just go in and check, but they're like, we can send you reports and do all these things. But I do have it like now. I've almost got it to a point where we can track like work that's being done to a specific project and
Right.
almost find out how much it costs for that project, which is sort of what I wanted. I wanted to find out like, hey, because we run a podcasting agency, like how much does it cost us in labor to accomplish a single episode?
Right.
Because that'll help us figure out really nail our pricing for the industry. And like there's like all the tools are there and we're tracking it all. I just haven't figured out how to put it all into reports yet. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's the thing about some of these
it's fascinating
softwares.
how
Yeah. Some of the
yeah
softwares are so
yeah
complex.
as you grow, you have to learn how to use them.
Yeah. That's why I love FreshBooks. It's so simple. And straightforward. I'm all about ease. Let's get the easiest one out there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of heroic tools, I want to take a few minutes to tell you about a tool we built that powers the Hero Show and is now this show's primary sponsor. Hey there, fellow podcaster. Having a weekly audio and video show on all the major online networks that builds your brand, creates fame, and drives sales for your business doesn't have to be hard. I know it feels that way because you've tried managing your show internally and realize how resource intensive it can be. You felt the pain of pouring 8 to 10 hours of work into just getting 1 hour of content published and promoted all over the place. You see the drain on your resources, but you do it anyways because you know how powerful it is. Heck, you've probably even tried some of those automated solutions and ended up with stuff that makes your brand look cheesy and cheap. That's not helping grow your business. Don't give up though. The struggle ends now. Introducing Push Button Podcasts, a done-for-you service that will help you get your show out every single week without you lifting a finger after you've pushed that stop record button. We handle everything else: uploading, editing, transcribing, writing, research, graphics, publication, and promotion, all done by real humans who know, understand, and care about your brand almost as much as you do. Empowered by our own proprietary technology, our team will let you get back to doing what you love while we handle the rest. Check us out at pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero for 10% off the lifetime of your service with us and see the power of having an audio and video podcast growing and driving micro celebrity status and business in your niche without you having to lift more than a finger to push that stop record button. Again, that's pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero. See you there. And now, back to the hero show.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about your own personal heroes then. Every hero has their mentors, just like Frodo had Gandalf, or Spider-Man had his Uncle Ben, or Robert Kiyosaki had his rich dad. Who are some of your heroes? Were they real-life mentors, speakers or authors, maybe peers who were a couple of years ahead of you? And how important were they to what you've accomplished so far in your business?
I think my mom was my biggest mentor. I call her, the original badass. She started a retail store out in Abilene, Texas when I was 5 months old. She grew that store into 5 locations, and she ran it every day for 44 years. She left every day for work before 7 a.m. and she came home every night after 6. And I don't ever remember eating takeout. We had a home cooked meal on the table every night. So to me, that's the sign of a true
Yeah,
badass.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So, and she only had, Sundays off. They were closed. She was closed on Sundays. So she really showed me more than told me. They say, do what, your actions speak louder than words is what I'm trying to say. And so she really showed me how to start a business, run a business, grow a business. I remember spending lots of childhood years after school and on weekends in the back of her store playing with Barbies. And then eventually she had me wrapping gifts for customers at Christmas and entering stuff into the computer system and, tagging and hanging the merchandise. So I really learned from her that work ethic and that tenacity and that never give up mentality. If you don't know anything about Abilene, Texas, it's a small little West Texas town, about 100,000 people. And if it wasn't for 2 colleges and an Air Force base, there would be no Abilene. There's no industry or anything like that. And she grew this into 5 locations in that one town and really just became an icon, dressing, the women of the big country. Still don't even understand how she did it, but enormously successful and obviously the person that I've always wanted to impress and make proud my whole life.
That's awesome. Does she still run those stores?
No, she was tragically murdered in 2018 in August. So everything I do now is for both of us, trying to live, for both of us. I was kind of after she was murdered, I was in a state of robot mode, I call it, kind of shock or whatever, or disbelief, and just kind of went through the motions. I mean, I was getting up every day and doing what I was supposed to do, but I wasn't really there. And then one day, about 6 months after the murder, I just woke up. I mean, like really woke up and said, wait a minute, this is not what she would want. She would want me to go bigger, go louder. She'd want me to do more things to help more families. She would want me to live for both of us. And so that's what I'm doing. I just wrote a book.
Yeah.
And it really talks about, a lot of it's about her and her inspiration, how I became who I am because of her and all that. So it's on Amazon, but yeah.
That's really rough and a difficult story. I'm sorry you had to go through that. So my sort of like follow-up question to that is do you know what happened to the stores? Like, are they still there, or did they get taken over by someone else? How did that go?
Yeah, no, she had just, they still own my stepdad still owns the buildings, but she had just retired just a year before she was murdered. So she had retired from, running the stores, and now they lease them out to different businesses. They still own the property and still own the locations. But yeah, she had, prior to the murder, about a year before that, she had gone ahead and retired and just started renting them out.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's sad to hear about a business icon having an end like that. That's not the way we want our stories to end.
Right.
But hopefully you can continue and carry on her story and carry on that legacy. And it sounds like you're doing a great job of that with the businesses that you're running.
I'm trying for sure.
So
I always want to make her proud.
yeah, absolutely. So I think as we come to the end of this interview, I want to talk a little bit about your guiding principles, right? One of the things that makes heroes heroic is that they live by a code. For instance, Batman never kills his enemies; he only ever brings them to Arkham Asylum. So as we wrap up this interview, I want to talk about the top 1 or 2 principles that you use regularly to, in your life and to run your businesses, right? Maybe it's something you wish you had known when you first started out all those years ago.
Yeah, I have a couple, but the one that comes to mind the most is the one that shocks people the most, and I don't understand why, but I always say, be willing to work with your competition. When I go into a meeting and they tell me, Stacey, we just signed a contract with Dallas PD or Fort Worth PD or whoever, I just say, great, that's awesome. They're my competitor. I'm trying to do exactly what you just hired them to do, but that's awesome. Just let me be the backup vendor. Just let me be the vendor when they can't fill the need of however many officers, or when they screw up, or heaven forbid, there's a tragedy in their city and they all get pulled off your job. Let me be the backup vendor. And then what happens, Richard, is they call me. I'm the backup vendor. I have the perfect process. I've been doing this a really long time. We know exactly what we're doing. All our officers have been doing it over 5 years. They're all National Highway Institute trained. So when that happens, I end up gaining the customer for life. So just don't ever be scared of your competition. If you're not really willing to go toe to toe, no matter how big that competition is, then you need to go back and look at your business and look at your processes and really perfect what you do.
Yeah. There's a term in the restaurant industry called co-opetition.
Yep.
Which is the idea that restaurants do better when they're with their competitors, because
True.
everyone wants to go to the same place and pick a spot to eat. You
Right.
don't want to be the lone business off, the lone restaurant off to nowhere else, because then you have to be a destination, right? You have to have something that creates the draw.
Right.
So I've always sort of figured that probably applies to a lot of businesses. You just don't have the visual of like all the restaurants in the same place. That more competition in your space is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that there's a demand in the spot, right? There's demand there. When you live in that abundance mentality of, we're actually creating value, we're not cutting out slices of the pie, then competition isn't a scary thing.
Right. Well, and I always say, there's enough business for everybody. Let's all just get along,
Yeah.
and, there's enough business for us all. If we, I'm not trying to get all the business. I'm just trying to get my piece of the business, and everybody else should do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a good place to wrap our interview, but I do finish every interview with a simple challenge, which is how you got here from Donnie's episode called the Heroes Challenge. And I do this basically to help me get access to stories I would never find out on my own. So it's a selfish question. But do you have someone in your life or in your network that you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine. And why do you think they should come share their story with our show, with our audience here on the show? First person that comes to mind for you.
Yeah, first person that comes to mind is Angela Lamb. She runs a farmer's insurance agency, and she has a really cool story of what took her from, she was working, I think, for someone else, and then something happened. I'll let her tell the story, but really made her decide she wanted to work for herself. So I would definitely call out Angela. I think she would really be a great story to be on your show.
Awesome. Well, we'll reach out to Angela reach out to you and see if we can get an introduction to Angela after the show.
Sure.
But what that leaves us with is our send-off, right? In comic books, there's always the crowd of people who are, standing around cheering and clapping for the acts of heroism. So as we close, our analogous to that is I want to find out where people can find you if they want your help in the future. Where can they light up the bat signal, so to speak, and say, hey, you know what? I have, a police officer that needs some off-duty work, or if they want to, if they've got something that needs help with the nonprofit. Where they can go to get that help, right? And I think more importantly is who are the right types of people to reach out for either of those situations, so they know where to go.
Yeah, well, Blue Family Fund is bluefamilyfund.org. We're also on, of course, all the social media, but there's a form on our website where they can apply for a scholarship or apply for financial aid. And then Point Blank Safety Services is pointblanksafety.com. And there's officer sign-up pages on there for officers that want off-duty work. Or if you just want to learn more about us and, you want to hire someone that's not just a guy with a flashlight, you want to hire an actual trained police officer, you can go to our site and submit a request for services. And then StaceyMagovern.com. And it's is the site where you can find me to be on a podcast or to speak at your next event or your conference. I have a really, really motivational kind of story about that $1.5 million contract that really seems to resonate with a lot of people as kind of the true American dream. So yeah, just look us up online or any social media. We're out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today, Stacy. It's been a pleasure having you on. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience before I hit this stop record button?
I think we've gone over a lot. Thanks again for having me. It was really fun.